Welcome back again to part 12. Last time in Terra Firma, Greg, I spent 16 hours connecting up every machine in my factory to an ever-growing computer storage system, allowing me to remotely order the creation of hundreds of items via autocrafting. I then used this power to autocraft roughly 1500 glass, 2800 basalt bricks, and 3000 rhyolite bricks to construct this insane new factory building, meant for more autocrafting space. While I've done all these things, TFG has undergone 7 major updates, of which I outlined in this video, and it's about time I updated my own world. Because of how large these updates are, this will come with great difficulty, so now, let's continue. Well, last time we built this huge building. We go down here, I've marked out where the machine lines are gonna go. I marked them like this so that I wouldn't put the lights where the wires are gonna be. Front of the base, I still have to add the create door eventually. But I have an idea for this. You see, I'm in actually quite an old version right now. A lot of people comment on it because people will be asking what version I'm on. Some recipes are really different. Like the diorite factory I have here. Diorite has been nerfed in newer versions. Right now when I centrifuge it, I can get all of this diorite into these. In newer versions, that does not happen. You get tiny piles like we do with Gabbro in this crate. And it takes way longer as well. We had to have 3 centrifuges for this factory. There's a few other things, like the AE2 issue we were having, where I couldn't make steel plates because steel has NBT data. That has also been fixed. And also the crashing create contraption, that was actually due to a GregTech crate, and GregTech crates are now blacklisted, so you can't do that in the new version. So we're gonna update. We're gonna update to 0.9, but because of all those nerfs and stuff, we can't just click update like I have with the other 3 updates that have happened in this series. I will have to actually prepare the base. One of the biggest changes that has happened, which will be catastrophic if I just go and update, is that these lava sources will no longer work. If I update, this will run out of water before it runs out of lava, and it will just explode the boiler. All of my boilers will explode, and they're no longer valid power sources. So everything will have to get switched onto benzene. This benzene power plant will have to power itself. The EBF over there has to be powered by the pyrolyze oven. The MV line has to be swapped out for benzene power. Most of these machines are probably going to get moved today anyways into the new machine lines, but still, that's going to be a lot of work and a complete restructuring. So that's going to be the first goal of today's episode, but right now I need to clean up the base, because in the amount of time, the sheer amount of time that time lapse took, there has been a lot of random things happening. Like you can see here, I have to clean up all the Kapok mess, because these trees can grow and then have a little bit that the saw can't reach, and then that ends up piling up and preventing other trees. This is why we get a jetpack. Oh yeah, someone asked where I got the jetpack. That was briefly mentioned at the end of episode 10, when I went searching for nether quartz. I just needed a way to get around faster, and then this was very useful for building. Some of these things have been floating up here for as long as the farm has existed. Only now with my jetpack am I cleaning them up. Oh yeah, speaking of the Kapok farm, we collected a whole 79,000 logs in the time it took me to build this base, and all the buffers are completely full. There's charcoal all the way through this crate, 8 buckets of wood tar, because this is ULV, that's as much as it can handle. Benzene buffers are full, battery buffer is of course full. So yeah, power is fine, which is why I feel safe to hook this into its own power supply. Then the other thing we gotta clean up is storage, because I forgot to filter this storage bus, and it got filled with everything under the sun. And that is just because all my 1K cells are full. So we need more storage. Now this item vault was supposed to fix that problem, but I'll highlight it in the video. There's crushed copper ore and impure copper dust, as well as, I think that's wolfenite. So I have to empty this item vault because it's filling itself up with a bunch of random items. Oh, and just a side note, I did disable AE2 channels, so that's why I'm able to run all of these AE2 machines without running into issues. Don't worry, I'm playing GTNH eventually, so I'll deal with channels then. Okay, I promise this is a temporary storage solution, but I've put all of our building blocks into these crates so that they'll be free from storage, and then we have 2 item vaults to deal with any new stuff. The old item vault over there is gone, because there was really no reason for its existence. I could just use these crates to store cobblestone instead. Oh, yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention this. We're pumping seawater out of a hole and turning it into chlorine gas. Then the last thing I'm going to do to fix storage is get more 1K storage components. So that should be enough for fixing up the base. We got the cat box sorted out. Storage is much better now, like this has 49 types after taking out so much. This has way less junk. Okay, well there is wood pipes now that I mention it. There's a lot less junk than there was before, and we have so much storage that even if there was that junk, it wouldn't affect us. So now we can get to work on updating. The first thing we'll need to do is change up the pyrolyze setup, because this is running off of steam turbines from a boiler, which relies on lava, which we won't be able to get in this quantity. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need a stable way for these pyrolyze ovens to feed off of themselves. This is risky because if the pyrolyze ovens run out of fuel, then it's going to be way harder to start them back up because they need their own power. But if I have a bunch of battery buffers and maybe even an alarm system if it runs out, then we should be fine. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to power all of these pyrolyze ovens from the back now, which might not make sense right now because we only have 2, but since I might eventually have like 4 pyrolyze ovens, I do want to power them from the back so that I can get all 4 powered at the same time. And then that removes the need for all the infrastructure over here. I can remove all of these turbines, all of these cables, this boiler, everything, and compress it all into one big pyrolyze setup. So I have the transformers hooked up here. We can remove this and then turn this around, and that seems to be working. So now it's powering itself, and these turbines are no longer required, except for the extractors, which still need to swap out their power source. Now we have 6 MV extractors. Gonna put them all down here. Okay, so now I have all the extractors lined up here. They all have MV power. No more LV extractors in this system. They got all the charcoal from here, and I've moved them forward to make space for 2 more pyrolyze ovens in the future here, which will probably be the largest this system ever gets. We gotta upgrade to nitrobenzene and eventually HOG. But the last thing we need to change are these distilleries, because they're relying off of this steam generator still. So I think it would be really convenient just to stick them right here. Okay, that's both distilleries. They're making benzene, which is getting outputted through there. We have a huge benzene buffer tank now, right here. 248 buckets. And that is just to keep the pyrolyze ovens online always. So this thing's now doing nothing, which means the boiler in general is doing nothing. But this is much more streamlined, and it's attached into our proper power grid. This is part of the battery buffer, and the pyrolyze ovens have their own benzene buffer and turbine. So now, we just take down the boiler. Not really any of these components are necessary anymore. The steam machine casing would have been useful a long time ago for like a steam grinder or a steam oven, but the steam oven is going to be replaced pretty soon. The multi-smelter is an HV multi-block that can, with nichrome coils, I think do 64 smelts at a time, so the steam oven would not be good. And the steam grinder is pretty useless because it doesn't have byproducts like our HV macerators do. So I'm just going to arc furnace this all into bronze. Firebox casing is especially useless, but the muffler hatch and maintenance hatch are very useful. So that conversion will probably be the most difficult conversion we'll do today. We can probably just swap out all these boilers for cables coming down from above with transformers, like right here. This is an easy fix. MV transformer, cable down, exactly the same because it's 4 amps of MV. And then this one, same deal, just 1 amp of HV transformed into 4 amps of MV. And transformers are really cheap. I can autocraft these hulls, but I did see in there it has to make some more plastic. Later this episode, we will have fully automatic, passive plastic. So the power grid is completely rebuilt. I'm probably going to leave this boiler up just for basically a memorial. It's an old boiler. I took down the other things, which is quite sad, so I want to leave at least something standing. But yeah, our power grid is entirely gas now. There's one little area that still uses steam, though. It's this. We rarely use this. Now, this compressor is actually the only machine here still in use, and that is because gold nuggets can't be just crafted into ingots, so I have to compress it here. But I already crafted the materials for an HV compressor, so this is just gonna straight up disappear. None of this will remain. Okay, I've updated now because most of the changes I still have to make, I want to make in the new update. So the most immediate thing you'll notice from this version is the texture changes. I don't know if I'll keep these. I mean, some of them I like, some of them I don't, but everything's a lot more saturated now. MV machines are very blue, they look exactly like the aluminum they're made of. The bronze boiler now actually shows the bricks inside. You can see this thing's no longer working because the hose pulleys are both non-functional. Upstairs, all the HV machines are white. But there are a lot of good things. I have probably released the update video by the time this comes out, and the quests are just so much better. Now is the best time to start playing TFG if you aren't already. You can get into Create as early as the Bronze Age, cogwheels no longer need treated wood, water wheels require iron, and Create is now a thing, which means that Create can be more integrated into progression, it's more balanced. It also means that water wheel spam won't work, so the big water wheel abomination I have down here shouldn't be working. What? Oh yeah, now it's updated, everything's overstressed. So yeah, normal Create shafts and cogwheels now do like millions of stress units because they're trying to force you to use the Create things. And actually even here, wooden cogwheels would not be enough. I'd have to upgrade to like aluminum and stainless steel. But yeah, Create I think is really cool. Some people hate it just because this doesn't work. Something I didn't mention in the update video is that A2 has been fixed, so it's not going to get confused over NBT data anymore. Cast iron is now actually called cast iron. Before it would just look like normal vanilla iron. So if I search up my iron in here, it's all cast iron. So because the encased fan no longer works because Create is down, we're gonna switch to a new smelting method. We've been using that thing since like episode 5, and it's finally time to change to the multi-smelter. This thing needs 3 HV circuits, some high-pressure steam furnaces, and some heat-proof infra casing. The multi-block itself is like a short EBF. It's really cheap, honestly. And while we're making this multi-smelter, I'm actually going to code up a bunch of recipes for rods in the lathe. We can finally do this. Oh no. I forgot about that. The high-pressure furnace now needs black steel rods due to the new progression path. So I'm going to need 9 black steel rods. There's black steel. It's going to put it into the arc furnace now. I think it'll work. Yes, no more NBT data. Okay, A2 is actually working as intended now, and it's the best feeling ever. And that's 3 high-pressure furnaces, which means we have a multi-smelter. And because I stocked up coils, we already almost have enough nichrome for this. Buses need bronze crates and plastic now. I don't know if that's a GregTech update or a Terra Firma Greg update, but either way, that makes input and output buses actually kind of difficult. But now we can get our multi-smelter. Question is, where do I want to put it? Forgot about that. We're gonna have it right here, right at the end of the Gabbro factory. But here's our multi-smelter, and the first machine in the new building. I'm gonna stick a 4x cable onto the 8x line because it's not gonna demand more than 4 amps. In fact, it's only ever gonna demand 2 amps. Oh, this thing can be turned into an alloy smelter, cool. Right now, though, I want to show off just how fast it smelts things. Might be a little bit worse than I remember it from Nomi Factory, but HV with nichrome can't be too bad. That just ate the entire stack. It's done smelt. It's as good as I remember. Oh, it's so good. Ran out of output space. I need a crate. This thing can run 64 recipes in parallel while only using 1 amp of HV, and it's running all of those recipes at the same time, so it takes as much time as one recipe. Eventually, all of our machines will be able to do this. Our wire mills, our alloy smelters, actually that thing is an alloy smelter, our extruder, our assembler, all of them will be able to do parallel recipes. But the multi-smelter is the first. Not technically the first, actually. There's some steam multi-blocks that can do that too. They're not nearly as good. Okay, so now that we have the multi-smelter, it's time to go to the Beneath. So the Beneath is basically Terra Firma Greg's version of the Nether. They added this in the new version, and it's a great source of resources. Now, it is slightly less realistic than the rest of the pack, and if you want, you can just not use it in your playthrough. But I'm kind of excited to play around with it, because I've been looking at it in creative mode for the update video, and it looks really cool. So I've installed a gun mod. I have Mr. Crayfish's gun mod, one of the most popular gun mods, and well, it is a little bit simple. It's probably one of the only gun mods that's going to be naturally compatible here, because all the guns need cast iron, and light gray concrete's already obtainable, and all of this is possible. We don't have to deal with some mods like weird crafting chains that work really weirdly with Greg Tech. So, we're gonna use Mr. Crayfish's gun mod, but first I need some concrete for the gun workbench. Also, in case you're wondering, I did do a vote on this a while ago, whether I should be allowed to add gun mods, and 80% of you said yes, so I think this is okay. So we're just gonna need a little bit of sphalerite powder, which acts as gray dye, and then we need light gray dye, light gray concrete powder. It's good to do some vanilla recipes for once. Okay, there we go. That's a workbench. Really easy. I've played around with this mod so much. I always like the assault rifle. I know a bunch of combinations that can make it really good, but that only works with enchantments, which isn't possible here. I think I'll do a heavy rifle, an assault rifle, a minigun, and a bazooka, because these things are relatively cheap compared to where I am in the playthrough, just because I have so much iron. But here we go. Can make a stack of bullets with some of that gunpowder. These are really cheap. Oh, I'll have to rebind that, because reload is also the same as shader reload. There we go. Hold on, there are some animals around my house. So Crayfish's guns are a little bit balanced, and so I didn't like one-shot the rabbit, but then again this is an assault rifle. So this one I know does damage. If I just shoot at that tree... Oh, I'm in claimed chunks. No, I'm not. Wait, what? Did they disable it? Oh. Still though, does about 20 damage. Can one-shot most things. This thing with the right attachments is a sniper rifle. And speaking of which, I need to get attachments on all of these, and then we'll go down to the Beneath. Red steel armor, jetpack. I think I'll keep the jetpack on, even though it greatly reduces my armor. The chestplate I have is worse than the rest of the armor. I think now we just drill down to the bottom. So according to this map, I want to drill right by the tree farm. Yeah, right here is the best place. The map says there's nothing all the way down, so we can drill here without having any cave problems. So we've arrived at the bottom, but it'll take me soon, and I do want my jetpack on, because in my experience it can just float me over the void. Okay, here we are. There's immediately a lot of enemies. I would rather not go near them. But this is the Beneath. We got some lush caves here. This is the area that most people will care the most about. Fun fact, all of these ferns count as flowers for bees. Don't ask why I know that, but yeah, there's Kaolinite here. There's also regular clay, then there's deep slate, renamed to Migmatite. Migmatite is a real rock. I looked it up on Wikipedia. Kinda cool, very metamorphic. Some pyroxenite here, that's just renamed Blackstone. Pyroxenite in real life is a very cool igneous rock. It's got quite a few forms, some of them look insane. But yeah, there's the ores we're talking about. That's ilmenite and aluminum, just a source of straight aluminum. That is saltpeter, I actually want to mine that. But I just realized now I didn't bring water. Luckily, because this isn't actually the Nether, water can exist here. And we can start mining this away. This gives us electrotine and saltpeter. Saltpeter gets us gunpowder. We need this. Also in these Beneath veins, there's the blocks of raw ore, which break into a bunch of smaller pieces. And this means we're gonna get even more saltpeter. Oh, there's diamonds. Yeah, diamonds are very common at the bottom layer of the Beneath. Something I really want to find down here, though, is nether quartz. because nether quartz does actually spawn down here because, well, it's a lot like the nether. Oh, there's a bastion. Bastions can often have some good stuff, so we're gonna try to start from the top here. Oh, this is the chest room already. Damascus steel screwdriver, we got some ghost peppers. There's some leather, and some mangrove logs. I don't know if I'll take that. Definitely take the ender dust and magma cream. Oh no, I'm terrible. That's why you use things like this. Takes so many bullets. I'm terrible at aiming. Oh. Oh yeah, the assault rifle's not bad. That's cool. I can harvest glowstone like that. Yeah, I think I've killed everyone here. There we go. That's what we're looking for. This is nether quartz. A lot of nether quartz. Where we found our last vein on the west coast of my continent, there are supposed to be veins this large, but there just wasn't. I was really unlucky, but this is going to be our main source now. I believe this is literally just barite, quartz, and quartzite, so there's no Certus quartz. But barite gives barium, and barium is the main ingredient in our next superconductor, so we better get mining. It seems like the most controversial part of this update is the beneath, and it is mostly just because I've advertised this pack as Minecraft's most realistic mod, but that's not its purpose. This just so happens to be the most realistic, but it's not its purpose. I didn't like it at first. When the dev told me what they'd added, I was like, oh no, they're adding the nether? And then I went here and it's pretty cool and all the rocks are real. And I learned a bunch about geology. But yeah, the beneath seems pretty controversial, but it's also the easiest to dodge. If you don't like the beneath, just don't use it. It's not necessary at all, it's just a good high-risk, high-reward area to get resources. I know I kind of removed the risk by adding guns, but I think guns are funny. Oh. There is still risk. But yeah, this is just so much nether quartz, I'll never be able to clean this whole vein. Look at this! Here's hoping the game doesn't find some way to kill me when I leave. Okay, this is how we're gonna be leaving. Again, I hope it finds a cave to drop me in rather than just suffocating me in a wall. Okay, good, it did find a cave. Where are we, actually? Oh, we're right under the base. Okay, we want to go straight up. Digging is not really something we can do down here, because it will just cave in. Oh, there's chert already. Okay, this is easy. Okay, slight problem. This cave seems to end here. How high is the ground above here? There's still another 40 blocks. I'm not digging that. Okay, we have to be close to the surface now. There's literally gravel here. Yep, that's dirt. We're fine. We're out. Okay, I need to charge my jetpack, and then make some more bullets. Okay, so why we've got all this nether quartz now is so that we can... They're here. What? I thought I destroyed them. No! Where's the last one? What did they do? That's huge damage. What? Okay, I thought I wiped them out on episode 6. They're back. And they blew up everything. I need to get my jetpack. Come back from the nether. Arnians are directly at my base. Oh, the old smithing hut as well. And this is where I started. This is literally the campfire. The first thing I placed in the entire base. So here's the thing. I do want to attack them. I want to go back, because this is unforgivable. Yo, these boilers are actually going to blow up. I absolutely want to take revenge for this, but the problem is, I don't know where they are. I'd be taking on a prolonged campaign into who knows where, and I definitely want to get on with progression. So the plan is, we're just going to keep these guns in our inventory. If they come back, we kill them. But I need to repair the front of the base, and then we can get on with A2 and hopefully not get interrupted. Okay, so that's about it for repairs. I have replaced this area with a new andesite-based path. A lot better than the old one. I had to make these light bulbs. Apparently they changed the recipe. A lot more expensive. The old create setup is gone. I'm not going to be able to get this back, and the boilers were damaged and almost exploded, so I had to remove them. All of this stuff is basically dead machinery I'm going to have to salvage. Very sad. One of the oldest parts of the base. The bridge, I don't even know. I might repair it in the future, but is so damaged. This is the biggest tragedy, though. No amount of repairs can bring this back. Kitchen's hanging off a cliff. That building actually doesn't even look any worse than it already was, that it burned down so many times. There we go. That really dates this episode. So, like I said, we're going to be aiming everything towards getting to Ivy for this Cork Tech suit. But there is so much in the way. Mainly, you know, the entire tier of insane voltage. And we're barely in extreme voltage. So, there's a lot of progression to do, and the fastest way to get through it is AE2. So we're going to finally utilize the new base. This top floor is going to be meant for passive factories. We already have like titanium processing. This is also going to be automatic plastic through oil processing, everything like that. We're also going to have blast furnaces constantly making things like aluminum. This is our floor where just things are constantly happening. No auto crafting, just passive. But if we want to build all those factories, we need a lot of machines, and that's where the bottom floor comes in. This floor will be lines and lines of machines. I've marked out each machine line with smooth andesite here, and this is where we're going to have big gold cables as sort of main buses, and we'll transform those down to MV or LV. This will be all of our benders, wire mills, alloy smelters, and anything new we want to make. This does also mean we're going to have a new bender and a new wire mill for foils and fine wire. Then once we have all of those things lined up, it's time to get into IV. We're going to get a distillation tower with oil processing, and that will get us lots of ethylene. And ethylene lets us get plastic way easier. Then that also means we can get epoxy really easily, and epoxy means we can work on nanocircuits. So by the end of the episode, I want to have nanocircuits. So let's start with some of these new machine lines. First, we have to deal with the problem of actually powering these machines, because I don't want to use those gold cables. Those gold cables have a loss of 2 EU per block, which means that by the time I get here, I'm going to lose almost half the power from my base. So we're going to start using superconductors like we did over here in the old system that used manganese phosphide. But manganese phosphide is an LV superconductor. We want to use an HV superconductor. So we're going to use mercury barium calcium cuprate, which is the HV superconductor of this time. And it has 4 amps per 1x wire, so we can actually get all 16 amps from just 4x cables. This stuff is surprisingly cheap to get. We just need calcium, barium, copper, oxygen, and mercury. Oxygen is actually half of the volume of that. And the barium, which is the hardest part here, we just got from barite. We have tons of barite because of the nether journey. It came with the nether quartz vein. Put all that together, and that's our mercury barium calcium cuprate. There, that's already 32, which is 16 4x cables. So these are actually going to be cheaper than the gold cables we've been using so far. That's so much more information, wow. So we see our percentage, and how much time it's done, and then also the maximum amount and what it's making. I like that a lot. Oh, circuit assemblers now have their own animation. So while all of the HV superconductors are crafting, let's start working on these new machines. I want to start with the 2 new wire mills, because wires seem to take a really long time. This will need 2 machine hulls and some copper cables. I'll just batch craft copper cables because we'll need these for everything. And then while those components are crafting, I think I'm going to get a new bender because we're running out of slots in the old one. But we have no crafting CPUs, and if I want to revolutionize storage, I'm going to need some more crafting CPUs. Auto-crafting these days, though, is powerful enough that I can just do this. Small detour, in the new update, EV cables now need either silicone rubber or styrene butadiene rubber, so we can't use the natural tree rubber we've been using. So I'm just gonna have to grab a bunch of chemicals from around the base, quickly whip up some silicone rubber, and then continue. Now we can finish up these conveyors, and these conveyors get us a pattern provider so that we can hook up some more machines. And what we'll immediately do with one of these pattern providers is automate pattern providers. All of those AE2 recipes that need the EV assembler can now be automated, like this. Which is also why I got an auto-crafting recipe for the conveyor. This means even more quick AE2 expansion. And I also have the wire mills and superconductors here, so we can start expanding out this line. I also need some glass cables, which means I should probably start processing some of this quartz. That nether journey was definitely worth it, because I just have so much nether quartz I can go through now. AE2 is finally easy. Look at that! That's straight doubling. There, now we're able to auto-craft glass cables. Last episode I said we were, but now we really have the ability to, just because of larger stockpiles. I could also probably automate fluix properly now. Oh, it already is. And with auto-craftable glass cables, we can bring our main ME bus over here. And with this transformer, the new line will begin. Oh, except you can't rotate machines anymore. This is transforming down from HV to MV. Then we can just add a battery buffer, put in some batteries, and we're gonna use the MVCC for our MV line, even though we probably shouldn't. And by the way, these 2X cables do hold 8 amps, which is how many batteries I have, so this is stable. Slap on our 2 wire mills, and then finally extend the ME cable over here, and attach the pattern providers. Now that we're finally at this line, things can get a lot better. We can start getting our benders along here, many extruders and alloy smelters, everything we possibly want. So now we have 2 wire mills, and this one can do fine wires. So now we have the wire mills done, let's get some benders. I'm gonna make 2 MV benders, one of them for foil and one of them for other plates. But with this strong of an AE2 system, this will be pretty easy. Cupronickel's now separated from copper, and so copper wires can now be made in a separate assembler while cupronickel is working. And work on a few more hulls. And I actually just quickly slapped together a brewery system to make a bunch of biomass down here, so polyethylene can be made in bulk. There we go. That was really fast. 2 more benders. Can auto-craft some more pattern providers. These will run our benders, but also we need another chemical reactor to handle silicone rubber due to that new aluminum cable recipe. Once you have these auto-craftable in any mod pack, you basically own the rest of the game. You can keep progressing at a ridiculous pace. And that is because of stuff like what we're about to do. 2 more benders, 2 more pattern providers, and then we can just start moving things over. So all foil will be done in one of those, and then we need to start splitting things up. So wrought iron should be done in a different area than this, and we'll take copper as well. So this bender will be a regular bender made for plates, and this bender will be a foil bender made specifically for foils. And then also, there's a chemical reactor over here, which we're going to finally start utilizing again. This chemical reactor will use circuit 2, which means that we can make polydimethylsiloxane in it. Or in other words, silicone rubber. And finally, the most expensive part, we're gonna need to automate the extruder. Right now we technically have an extruder automated right here, and it only does small gears. But we'll also need normal gears and bolts and later pipes for motors, and actually a lot of other things. I want to hit them all right now. So we're gonna need 6 more extruders on 1 MV line. And conveniently, I already made 6 MV machine hulls. We need 6 pistons. Now we just need steel pipes, which is actually what we're kind of trying to automate, because our current recipe for steel pipes that we've been using for the whole game, or pipes in general, needs a hammer and a wrench, and the game can't use a hammer and a wrench, which is why we're getting extruder recipes. That's a large pipe shape. There's 6 pipes, and now almost 6 extruders. I forgot that it needs a lot of circuits. There we go. And that is a huge recipe. I always love looking at this tab. And we're on our way to those microprocessors. We just need 4 more, and then we will have all of the extruders. And then I'm going to start working on oil processing. Because like I said, our goal is now to get into Ivy. But I want to get through oil processing to get to epoxy so that we can get better circuit boards for nanocircuits. And that will let us get into insane voltage, and insane voltage lets us get Cork Tech armor, which will make us practically invincible against the Arnians, which I am going to go on a revenge campaign against. But also, progress in the pack, you know, for normal reasons. There's our last extruders. kind of insane that I can just craft 6 machines and not even care about it. Also, I feel like I should reiterate, because I'm flying so much, this jetpack was made on episode 10, after the quartz search. I probably said this at the start of the episode, but I want to reiterate it because people thought I was cheating. Pattern provider auto-crafting might be the most important thing, though. The fact that I can just do this is insane. And it's already just bottlenecked on Canthal. Oh, what's it getting stuck on here? Just didn't do that. There we go. You know, since I'm down here, I might as well finally place the extruders. Taking a little bit too long to do that. Ridiculous. Once we have multi-block extruders, we can have just different input buses that have different molds instead of having separate extruders. All my machines are silent. That bothers me so badly. I'm not even joking, I think it was placebo, but one time I had a really bad headache, and just decided to listen to some GregTech machine sounds, and the headache went away within minutes. Probably placebo, but that's insane. And now all my GregTech machines aren't working because of the new update. There we go. And actually, because of the way I've set these up, because they're block pattern providers, they actually connect into each other. See, these are all online. If I didn't turn off channels, this would only work to like 8 blocks, but since I did turn off channels, this is what we have. So now that we have all those in place, it's time to use all of these patterns. Because right here I have a pump recipe, and this needs rotors and rings and fluid pipes and screws, and all of these things need the extruder, because the bronze rotor can be made like that. Bronze screws are made in the lathe with bolts, which are also made in the extruder. The rubber rings can be made one of 2 ways. Either we can extrude rubber ingots or rubber pulp. I'm gonna do rubber ingots, and that's because I am soon making a system to solidify rubber into ingots instead of sheets. And then finally, the steel pipe, which is actually the sole reason why we made a pipe mold in the first place. And now before we're able to autocraft these, I actually need rubber ingots. Oh, well actually I do need... I need to autocraft them to actually get rubber ingots, though. There's our test, and we have our pump. And that is an MV fluid solidifier. Oh, I actually apparently need 2 fluid solidifiers. But this is a good time to properly test this now that I actually have the extruders set up. A rotor just finished, now it just made a pump in that assembler. Rotors seem to take quite a while though. And there's 2 pumps again. And since I crafted 2 hulls, we love overcrafting, that's a fluid solidifier. And now we have 2 fluid solidifiers to make rubber and plastic ingots and rubber and plastic sheets. And why we want ingots is because ingots can be put through the extruders for things like rings. Alright, here's our new fluid solidifier recipes. That's bars, that's sheets, and that's all we need. So that is a lot of autocrafting stuff. So much so that I think we could really build as much as we want. I think the biggest bottleneck in the factory right now are things like silicone rubber and polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride. Like if I ordered this, it's making biomass, turning it into ethanol, and taking chlorine gas and sulfuric acid and all of that. It's manually combining all of these things. And oil processing just gives straight ethylene. That would skip all of that. So we're gonna try to get into oil processing. Now, this is Minecraft's most realistic mod, right? So what do you think they did to oil? Well, they did something insane. If we get raw oil here, you first have to distill that into sulfuric gas, sulfuric heavy fuel, sulfuric light fuel, and sulfuric naphtha. Now the main thing we want is sulfuric light fuel, which then needs to be combined with hydrogen to get the sulfur out through hydrogen sulfide. And then the light fuel needs to be cracked in a cracker, either lightly hydro and steamed cracked, or severely steam and hydro cracked. And I usually go with severely steam cracked because we can put this through a distillation tower again, and that gives us things like benzene, butadiene, ethylene, all of these things, but then also some more naphtha and heavy fuel, which then can go through the whole process, steam crack it, the whole thing. So they added full-blown real-life oil distillation. I don't know if someone out there is an expert on petrochemistry, but I feel like this is one of the most realistic things in GregTech. So there's a lot of moving components to this, and we need to start by finding oil. And our ore prospector only prospects ores, so I'll want a new prospector to prospect fluids. And so we're going to get an HV prospector. Okay, there's our HV emitter. Here's our HV sensor. There's our HV prospector. And this straight up replaces the LV1, because this can do ores at a larger range, but then we can shift right click, and now it's looking at oil, and our entire base, everything is light oil. So right now in our base we have the choice between 2 different kinds of oil. We have light oil under the base over here, and we have heavy oil just to the east of the base. This heavy oil really isn't too far. Literally just starts here. And heavy oil is way better than light oil. It can be distilled to get 2.5 times more heavy fuel than heavy oil you started with. It still gives a little bit of sulfuric gas, which is way better than what light oil gives. Light oil gives a ton of gas, but no heavy fuel, basically no light fuel, no naphtha. It's pretty bad. And we're trying to target things like heavy fuel, light fuel, and naphtha. Heavy oil is way better than light oil, giving tons of heavy fuel, which can be severely steam cracked and turned into all of these chemicals. Light fuel and naphtha are some of them, which are also given from the previous oil distilling recipe, and these things all have their own chains in the cracker, and then distilled into all of these chemicals. So, there is clearly a lot of work ahead, because that needs 3 11-tall distillation towers, 1 4-tall distillation tower, an oil drilling rig, 4 chemical reactors to remove the sulfur, and then either 3 chemical reactors or 3 oil cracking units to crack all of these fuels. The thing with the oil cracking unit is that it takes HV power, and that would be so expensive at our current point, having 3 of these running constantly. And the multi-block itself is also pretty expensive, needing copper nickel coils and a bunch of stainless steel casing. And we're already going to be using a lot of the stainless steel casing for the distillation tower, which doesn't look too bad if you look at it here, until you realize that we need 11 hatches, and so it actually looks like this and needs 82 casing. So this will need literal hundreds of stainless steel. We only have 83. I estimated like 800 or 900 stainless steel to get all of these distillation towers, so that is the first thing we're going to do. But then there's also the problem of actually powering these things, because they're going to be away from the base like this. And I don't want to drag a cable all the way out here. We do not have that many superconductors. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an ME cable hooked up from storage that will be storing all of the benzene that comes from our current benzene factory, and then we can have gas turbines over at the oil refinery. And additionally, the last thing for power is this natural gas, which, like I said, will be turned into LPG, and this LPG is as good as benzene in the gas turbine, so a little bit of its power is made back. But first, we need a ton of stainless steel. We do have enough manganese to do this, and we easily have enough iron, and nickel is also basically set, so the only thing we're missing for this much stainless steel is the chromium. So yeah, I think we're going to continue using ruby, but we've already used all of our pre-existing ruby, so we're going to have to go find a new vein. But once again, the nether presents itself as an option. Okay, they're equally common in both dimensions. The thing with ruby veins in the nether is that they'll be exposed. I can easily place supports, and there's way more stuff. So hopefully this time when I leave my base, I won't get jumped as soon as I get back. There, block of raw ruby. That's what we like to see. Well, this was a successful trip. I've mined out this entire huge area. Redstone only spawns in granite and pyroxenite, and so this schist mostly cuts it off until you go down where everything becomes pyroxenite, and then it's just this. So, I just got so much. We got some ruby in here, and then these 3 stacks, which should be enough for our current chromium supply. If it's not, then we'll come back with more batteries, because that was not enough power. So this ore crate is mostly full, but we can take the ruby we've now harvested and put it all into here. And yeah, we'll crush all of our ruby, because we might as well. We need all the chromium we can get. So we're having all that stainless steel get smelted and mixed and crushed now, because that is the longest part of this entire project. So we can start on the drilling rig now. You know, we should probably be using a faster EBF. This thing's still on HV, but I can add another hatch and it'll be an EV blast furnace. This looks kinda cursed, but trust me, it's safe, because these have an amperage of 4, and these are each taking 2 amps, and it'll only burn the cables if it's taking more than that. And so now we have an extreme voltage blast furnace, melting vanadium steel in a record 6 seconds. But now we have that vanadium steel, we can take 16 ingots, turn it into 4 gears in our new extruder line, and then just a few other easily auto-craftable components, and we can make our fluid drilling rig control block. And that was the hardest part. The rest of this is just a bunch of steel. Okay, so our drilling rig will be literally as close to the base as possible, so like right here. And now the first part of our oil refinery is done. So yeah, it detects heavy oil, it just doesn't have any power, which is the next thing we're gonna solve. I just realized a huge problem with this factory. I don't know if any of these machines are actually safe outside. I don't know which parts explode and which don't. Like, will the control block explode or just the energy hatches? Or will none of them explode? Okay, so after a bit of testing, it is a lot more complicated than before the update. So I put a whole oil distillation setup through 2 entire rainstorms with no protection, and there were occasional fires, but nothing exploded, which is way different than before. Before, you'd have 4 seconds of rain and all your machines are gone. And it also seemed like when rain landed beside an energy hatch, it wouldn't light it on fire. I might be wrong. I don't know if I'm willing to put my machines at risk for that, but I also want my oil distillation setup to still look kind of cool, so I'll do minimal protection for these machines. Anyways, this glass shielding is probably unnecessary, and I could literally get away with just this. Okay, so now we need to power that oil rig. And this means we need a lot of benzene. And I'm going to put a storage bus on a tank. I'm not going to do this tank because then storage is going to be pulling from our most important backup tank. I don't know if I want to pull from this tank because this powers the factory. And so I might just have a separate extra tank. Ooh, I know where to put it. We'll put it at the end of this line so that benzene can get through all the turbines before it goes here. Like, our oil refinery is lowest priority. And we can connect this to the benzene tank, and now, if we look in storage, there's our benzene. So this means that benzene can be pulled from here and taken to the oil refinery. But how do we pull it out of storage automatically? Well, by using an ME export bus, which I'm going to automate because these are important. That's 1 export bus, we'll need another one, so I'll order that now. We're all the way out at the oil refinery, we can get this export bus. There we go. So that's power. And we should be drilling oil. Yep, here we go. 171 millibuckets a second of heavy oil. We've done it. We've hit oil. Yeah, I don't think this is actually going to be too difficult to set up, but I guess I haven't started the hard part yet. So 576 stainless steel plates. Yeah, we're not even close. We might have enough for the first distillation tower, so I'll just start making those. Okay, so now that we have a decent supply of stainless steel, I can make our first batch of casing. So this means we're just 20% of the way there, except the first distillation tower is actually really small. And for it we only need 33 casings, so we're basically already there. Which is why I'm going to start making supercomputers now. That's a lot. And at the same time we're going to make 4 HV machine hulls, using almost all of our remaining stainless steel, because this project is just non-stop stainless steel consumption. Okay, but now we can place down the control block, now that we actually know where everything's going. Input hatch can go there. Now we have heavy oil connected up into there. Put maintenance on the back. And I think the rest is just the output hatches. And there it is, it did actually form. We have a distillation tower. This is the cheapest one, and it's already making all that sulfuric fuel. There we go. So, much like an actual distillation tower, basically this is heating everything up, and all of those gases are rising. But some of those gases are much heavier than others, so the heavy fuel comes out on the bottom hatch here, and then the light fuel just above it, and then naphtha, and then the sulfuric gas here, which is mostly just methane, the lightest part of this. But this heavy fuel is exactly what we want, because we're going to crack it and get this amazing recipe out of it, with all of the benzene and ethylene and toluene and all of this good stuff. And that will come in the other distillation towers. But right now we gotta separate all of these out and then remove their sulfur, because these are all very sulfuric. Oh, hold on. They added a new framed glass recipe. If I just made a bunch of framed glass, framed glass has connecting textures, which means that when it's in the sky, this is going to be basically unnoticeable. If I put glass up in the sky here, it would block all rain, but it would also block all the snow, which kills two birds with one stone. None of my machines will get hit by rain. There's no fear of that. And then also, there's no snow. I just want to put it pretty high up so that I don't have to look at it. Here, we can make a blue steel builder's wand. So yes, they added builder's wands to the pack, which would have been great last episode. So in case you don't know what builder's wands are, they just do this. I'm actually basically done my glass platform already. And this is even more invisible than I thought it would be. And when we're down there, it's going to blend in with the sky. But yeah, we just need a little bit more glass, but basically these things will build, in the case of the blue steel wand, up to 128 blocks of a row and just extend it. That would have made the floor of that base basically instant, and that would have even made some of the walls easy. Okay, stainless steel update. We have 77 more stainless steel. Nowhere close to enough for the next distillation tower. That one will require like 220, I think. Somewhere in that ballpark, but we're about halfway there. But we still have things left to do before then. First of all, we now have all of these sulfuric chemicals, and we have to remove that sulfur. So we're going to do this with 4 LV chemical reactors, all being supplied with hydrogen gas. Now the good thing about this is we can put in 2 buckets and get 1 bucket of hydrogen sulfide, which we can then electrolyze to get all of that hydrogen right back. So we're going to need 4 chemical reactors, we apparently already have 1. And we're gonna need an electrolyzer, which we already have. And then I can immediately take this MV power and plug it into here to get LV power, and use the LV power to power 4 chemical reactors like this, which I'm plugging directly into all of these. This might be a mistake, placing them this close, because now I have to do all of the routing right here. But at the same time, this is pretty clean, for now. Just wait, it's gonna get really bad. This might be my first time using 4x pipes. That just looks like MV machine casing. Now I can fill these all with hydrogen gas, and they'll start making normal heavy fuel and hydrogen sulfide. So now there's 2 of those things. Oh, I know how the channels work. It is literally as simple as these pipes can hold 4 different fluids, and then I can use filters if I want to pull from them. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. Okay, so then we can have an electrolyzer at the top here, and then use a fluid filter here. So that'll whitelist hydrogen sulfide, which will then get electrolyzed very quickly into hydrogen and sulfur. There. The hydrogen sulfide makes its way into this electrolyzer, and that's the only thing that will ever go in here. So now that loops the hydrogen back through, and everything is mostly full of hydrogen, but it'll never lose hydrogen, so there's always just 2 buckets missing, which can never stop the factory. But everything's saturated with heavy fuel, so we now need to deal with that. We need to make our cracking system to combine steam and any fuel to get severely steam-cracked fuel. So the last thing we need now is a fluid heater. We're going to use an MV fluid heater because I don't want to make a transformer just for a fluid heater. I love automated pumps. Those are my least favorite thing to manually craft. Actually, very conveniently, all of the materials I need for the steam system is right here. Here we go. That's immediately enough to start making lots of steam. And I believe I need to set these on 3, and we should be cracking. But while all this is happening, I have not stopped making stainless steel. There we go, 75 clean stainless steel casing. I don't think that's enough, though. I'm definitely gonna need to mix some more. And we're actually gonna start running low on iron. Okay, I think we have everything now, so I can start construction. We're gonna put the input hatch on the bottom here. There, heavy fuel goes through here, and now it's in the input hatch. Now I can start stacking up all of these output hatches. And then I can also place my maintenance hatch on the back, and finally stack this up, which I can do with the wand. Oh no, don't do that. There. That's our second distillation tower and the first major one. Okay, one last thing, it does actually need an output bus. because there is a chance of carbon, but yes, it's working, and look at all the outputs. So, it is creating carbon dust, light fuel, naphtha, toluene, benzene, butene, butadiene, propane, ethane, ethylene, and methane gas. But now the refinery is really beginning. Like, even benzene, we've already made 9 buckets of benzene. That's probably more power than this thing uses. But now we just need way more stainless steel, like 400 more stainless steel. Possibly less than that, but still, it's gonna be a lot. We are basically out of nitrogen now, which means that this factory needs to be expanded. But I really don't like where it is. So before we can continue on oil processing, we're gonna need a better source of nitrogen to smelt this stainless steel. And I think I want to put the new factory right here. We're gonna finally start taking down the mess I created over here, even though I did recently make it worse. Okay, so we can just extend the superconducting cable over here, and we'll have our gas collector here. That'll make air, and then we have our 4 centrifuges there. I might be a bit addicted to the quadruple pipes. I can output these all, send them into quadruple pipes, and then I only need to filter their output, which will be here and here. There we go. And I might have to increase the power of this gas collector. I could easily make it an MV gas collector because there's MV power right there. But I'm pretty sure it makes 10 buckets at a time and it produces it faster than these can use it. So this is gonna start producing nitrogen 4 times faster than what we've already been living off of for the whole playthrough. And conveniently, it's right next to the EBF now, so I can just put the nitrogen in, and there's some more stainless steel. Now that we have that dealt with, I can get back to processing all of this into our second distillation tower. Okay, we're getting close to the last 8 supercomputers for the 2 distilleries. I'm gonna need a little bit more other components like these 2 pumps and these pipes, which we don't have enough plates for. And this is really pushing auto-crafting. There might be a little bit of contradictions here, but no, that wire mill seems to be working fine. This is what I'm worried about, though. We're gonna fix this later, that's why we're doing all this chemical stuff with oil, but everything's sharing this chemical reactor, and I just hope it doesn't start overriding recipes. Okay, so our last 2 distillation towers are here. I'm going to start auto-crafting the 24 hatches required for all of the fluid management on both towers. But we do not have all the casing for both towers, so right now we're only building the light fuel tower. And there we go, it's full of different gases, and light fuel gives a lot more ethylene. You can see there's already 500 millibuckets, but on the other distillation tower we've just had so much more heavy fuel. That's starting to get more complicated. Also, I'm gonna have to clean the snow off the glass roof. I thought snow couldn't fall on glass. Clearly I'm wrong though, because there is just a shadow on my oil refinery. Whoa, okay. That's all the stainless steel we still need. That's what I was missing. I think it's running. Yep. This is the last distillation tower. This one's doing naphtha, and so it produces the most ethylene. There, it's already at a bucket. So for every bucket of naphtha, we get half a bucket of ethylene. So that's all 3 distillation towers. There's just a little bit more routing I have to do for these bottom 2 outputs, and then the system should be fully functional. When I said I'm doing routing, I just mean I'm placing more quad pipes. So that means everything goes together. These quad pipes handle all of the raw, light and heavy fuel and naphtha and refinery gas that comes out of the bottom 2 outputs there, but then also these chemical reactors. The last thing we need to do is deal with that refinery gas and get all of the tanks on the front here. And those kind of go together because I'm probably just going to send most of the refinery gas into a tank. And we're not going to use any old tank, we're going to use the Super Tank 2, which can hold 8 million millibuckets. I already got all of the PVC pipes for this, I just need some microprocessors. How much microprocessors? A stack, which we can just do. We're going to use 16 MV pumps, which we don't have the aluminum for, and we're going to use 48 aluminum plates, plus all of these actually, which is an additional 2 stacks. Okay, might want to smelt some more aluminum. But watch the power of an EV blast furnace. 3-second aluminum. This oil refinery, though, it's taken so long. I was gonna try to get nanocircuits this episode, but I bet we're already like 50 minutes in. And now we have everything we need for all 16 super tank 2s. And then I'll use my screwdriver so that I can actually input. So this is our methane pipe, and so I can just merge the methane out on here. And now this thing takes in refinery gas, and over the course of 10 seconds it turns 8 buckets into 4 buckets of LPG and 4 buckets of methane. So that is now everything accounted for. And in case you got a little bit lost, I'll give a little bit of a breakdown. So, storage exports benzene into this drum, which gets sorted into these 2 HV turbines. We do not actually need both of these. We only need like 1.5, but I can't have half a turbine. Then that powers this fluid drilling rig, which gives tons of heavy oil. The heavy oil goes through this pipe and gets distilled in our small distillery here. This goes directly into these 4 chemical reactors with its sulfuric heavy fuel, light fuel, naphtha, and gas, which react with hydrogen. And this reaction takes the sulfur out by combining it with hydrogen and gets hydrogen sulfide and heavy fuel without the sulfur. So that gets sent into these pipes, which are basically a free-for-all. The hydrogen sulfide goes up into this electrolyzer where it gets electrolyzed back down into hydrogen and sent back into the chemical reactors. Well, all of the fuels, the light fuel, the heavy fuel, and the naphtha, go into these 3 chemical reactors to be combined with steam from this fluid heater, taking water from here. Once these are steam cracked, they go through a bunch of horrible routing to go under these distillation towers, where they are then turned into all of these petrochemicals. Any remainder on the bottom 2 levels, for example, heavy fuel can give naphtha and light fuel, goes back into these fluid tanks, gets cracked again, and gets distilled in the other towers, meaning we are making full utilization of this oil. There's already 88 buckets of benzene, 28 buckets of ethylene, and a ridiculous 104 buckets of methane. So now to attach that to storage, we're going to automate storage buses with these recipes. So now if I search in storage and go by liquids only, hold on, it's hard to pick these out. If I just search ene here, toluene, propene, ethylene, butene, butadiene, benzene. But that benzene is really good news, because now we have a backup source of benzene just in case these pyrolyze ovens go a little bit wild. So the last thing we're going to do this episode is start to make use of all of this, mainly the ethylene. We've been manually crafting polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride in this chemical reactor, which is really inefficient. We should not be making plastic on demand, and that has taken up a lot of circuits in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start making a bunch of MV chemical reactors. We're going to make one chemical reactor that will constantly be making polyethylene. Then we'll have another 2 chemical reactors that'll make vinyl chloride and then PVC. And then finally, the most important, we're going to make a styrene butadiene rubber factory. This is the best synthetic rubber in the mod, lowering the cable cost by 75% on rubber, and it is actually valid in EV and above cables. So that means we need a bunch of chemical reactors. We're going to start with styrene butadiene because of how important it is. So that means 2 MV chemical reactors and 1 HV. So how this factory is going to work is we're going to have an ME interface there, and this thing will request sulfur, and then I can use a robot arm here. I can tell it to keep exactly a stack of sulfur in here, and it'll pull in a stack of sulfur from the interface, and no more. And so then this sulfur stays here, but it won't fill up all of the slots to leave space for styrene butadiene. Then I can import ethylene, I'll let it import benzene, and I'll import butadiene. Then I can use our good friend, the quadruple fluid pipe, and pull all of that butadiene, ethylene, and benzene through here, and then just start filtering onto the fronts of all these machines. And so here we have ethylene and benzene, we have butadiene, and we have sulfur. Okay, here, now we'll whitelist styrene on that side, output the styrene in there, and now we have styrene and butadiene. It needs oxygen still, so I think I can just add that on to this system. I'm very glad I used an interface instead of an export bus, because that would have needed so many export buses. So now this makes all of that pulp, and this is going to start turning into a bunch of liquid styrene butadiene rubber. So then that means this liquid styrene butadiene rubber goes into here. And that's a factory. We already have 3.8 buckets of styrene butadiene, and this is the best rubber in the game. This factory will just keep running until the drum is full, and whenever we use any rubber, it will fill it a little bit more. If the factory needs to produce more, I can upgrade the machines and replace the drum with a better one. And you may think that factory was a huge headache to set up, but here's all the patterns it affected. So if I asked for a bunch of copper cables, like this, it already has the styrene butadiene, so it can immediately start crafting. And for 40 cables, it only needed 1.4 buckets. Way cheaper. So for the last chapter of this episode, we need to fully automate 3 kinds of plastic. Polyethylene, which has been used in machine hulls and AE2 machines, polyvinyl chloride, also known as PVC, used in circuit boards, and a new mystery plastic, which I will explain soon. I started making the PVC factory since that was the hardest for my AE2 system to craft, but after building this simple contraption similar to the new rubber factory, I ran out of ethylene due to some issues with the oil refinery and had to skip straight to that new plastic called PTFE, short for polytetrafluoroethylene, or Teflon if you're a normal person. This polymer is completely acid resistant and is used in some great fluid pipes and chemical reactors, and unlike the name suggests, it doesn't need ethylene to make. Instead, it needs chloroform and hydrofluoric acid, one of which can cause permanent brain damage and the other needs fluorine, which I don't have. This meant I went to the beneath where I got topaz to be turned into fluorine, but got greedy and went looking for more when this happened. Uh-oh. No, I'm dead. Oh no. All of my tools were in my backpack. We have this wrought iron pickaxe. Okay, the red steel mining hammer's still here. And I think I still have my steel chest plate in here. Yeah, I do. Okay, I've grabbed a few items quickly so that we can actually make our way over there, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to where we died on land. We can take our usual path that used to go to the hematite mine and then just keep going. Okay, y negative 57 is roughly the depth that it starts taking you, so I'm gonna deal with my inventory quickly. Well, that was spot on. One singular cave spider can do that much. Okay, now for real this time, we're leaving. With all of our guano, and our ender pearl dust, and our mild amount of topaz and bornite, we're gonna go and we're gonna get a better source of fluorine because that was kind of a bad idea, and I actually want to use these drills now. There we go. Okay, now we're getting borax and lepidolite and rock salt. So rock salt is a great source of potassium. This normal salt is not really useful, it's already infinite, and the lepidolite is what we care about, because this gives more boron, gives a bit of cesium, which is useless, but it gives fluorine. It's not the best source of fluorine, in fact it's one of the worst, but because of those other byproducts that we're also needing, that's why I chose this. Well, I didn't really originally choose it. We were gonna go get topaz, and we have done that, but I was gonna drill for topaz. Well, we'll come back to this lepidolite mine next episode. Hopefully there's enough fluorine for more PTFE. Okay, so I'm processing through all of our topaz, or at least part of it, and we have enough now that I can start making fluorine. So PTFE is going to need a lot of fluorine. And while we wait for topaz to process, I'm also going to move our old seawater electrolyzer. This thing was put together as a temporary system to get a little bit of chlorine, and it just doesn't work, especially now that hose pulleys don't work. What does still work, though, is normal pumps. These pumps are still fully functional, and they can pull from infinite water sources. And seawater does work for these infinite water sources. So we're going to build a new factory for that. There it goes. And so now this is infinite chlorine and hydrogen. The hydrogen was already building up, just from styrene, which is hilarious. But why did we get infinite chlorine gas? Well, it's because of how polytetrafluoroethylene is made. So polytetrafluoroethylene needs tetrafluoroethylene, which needs hydrofluoric acid, and chloroform needs methane and chlorine. And methane is solved, but it still needs a ton of chlorine. Wait a minute. No, it doesn't. Because that's 6 buckets of chlorine, but then it gets 3 buckets back, and then another 3 buckets back. Never mind then. Okay, so we're gonna need 2 MV chemical reactors, and then we're also gonna need the electrolyzer to turn the hydrochloric acid back into chlorine, and then we're gonna need the HV chemical reactor for the PTFE itself. And so that means an HV motor, we love auto-crafting, and then a bunch of MV motors, which I already made. Okay, and then we'll make 8 microprocessors for the MV machines, and make sure we have some glass. And then also stock up on cables, which should be passive, but I don't have a lot of passive crafting. That will be more for next episode. There we go. Full factory for polyethylene as well. I got sidetracked again. Let's get back to polytetrafluoroethylene. I need to call it PTFE. People are not going to understand what I'm saying. I'm going to design this first. Because we have the first chemical reactor. This makes hydrofluoric acid. And why we have this separation here is this. But now I think we're ready to start importing fluids. So we need to import fluorine, and we need to import oxygen, and we need to import... So hydrogen's already in here, and it's going into this chemical reactor. That's good. And we'll start up the factory now. So I have been doing a bunch of things that I've probably even muted myself in editing, just built it. But basically, we have this pump pumping in fluorine, methane, and hydrogen, and it goes through this quad pipe. The methane goes into this hidden chemical reactor right there, and then the hydrogen and fluorine will go in here. This chloroform chemical reactor will be taking methane and chlorine, and it'll turn it into hydrochloric acid and chloroform. The hydrochloric acid goes into here to be electrolyzed, and the chlorine gets recycled, and the chloroform goes into this chemical reactor with the hydrochloric acid from here to make tetrafluoroethylene, which is polymerized in this top chemical reactor. So yeah, it's a lot, but if you don't understand it, it's okay. The point is, this makes tetrafluoroethylene, and I'm about to start it up. If I put chlorine gas in here, we should be working. Chloroform has gone in there. Hydrochloric acid is being recycled. We're making tetrafluoroethylene. And the recycled hydrogen gas does actually go into here. Yeah, it shows up there, and that goes into storage where it is then re-imported to be put into here, which is great. We have 16 buckets of hydrofluoric acid left, which means we're going to be able to do a total of 5 recipes. And here's our tetrafluoroethylene. There, so hydrochloric acid is then recycled again, and that's more chloroform. And that's completely renewed now. All of the chlorine has been recycled. And now I can set up a pump on the top and filter it. And now tetrafluoroethylene's in here. We're making PTFE. We have Teflon, everyone. It only took whatever this is. Storage bus online, and we'll filter this to only be PTFE now. That is the final factory of the episode. So we have so many chemical factories now. We obviously have the one we just built, the PTFE. We have our PVC factory on this side, which takes in chlorine and ethylene from storage and messes up, gives us a bunch of hydrochloric acid. Thank you. Fix that next episode. We have our polyethylene factory here, which actually just piggybacks off of the PVC inputs and turns it into plastic. We have our new and improved nitrogen factory here, with 1 gas collector supplying 4 centrifuges to make nitrogen in there. Then over here, the styrene butadiene factory, using all of these inputs. This one is just a direct product of oil processing. We could not do it without that. And then new and improved seawater electrolysis, giving us chlorine and hydrogen. But I'd say the pinnacle of this episode was the oil refinery, which is still going strong. Now, when I did the math for this factory, I knew heavy fuel would be a bottleneck, which is actually why I didn't use oil cracking units, because it would actually be even worse. But yeah, I am fully aware that it is completely stuck on heavy fuel, and it will be until I upgrade it, probably with like EV oil crackers. But this is more than plenty. Here, 94 buckets of toluene, 27 buckets of benzene, which are actually being used to produce power. Probably the most abundant thing we have, though, is this methane. 506 buckets of methane, and then our processing lines. So again, we didn't progress through a voltage tier, but we certainly did progress. So many new plastics and chemical factories, and while the attack was pretty devastating, there's still a hole in my window. I think we're set to get that Quark Tech suit, which will basically make us invincible. Thank you all for watching, and God bless.